as a kid in the 80s, growing up to start becoming a car guy, you like your micro machines, your Hot Wheels and slot cars and your radio control cars and all. But at that time, people were a little bit more into the big classics, the pre war cars. My father had a Model A two door when I was a little kid. So I do remember that. Some of my early childhood memories, kind of the smell, the noises it make, the whine, and going to parade. I've had a few pre war cars of my own, not too many. I had, of course, the Auburn Bowtail Speedster from previous VINwiki story. I think about like being Gatsby on a budget or something. I had a couple of our like race cars. So pre-war cars back in the day in the 20s and 30s, there were really beautiful race cars built, like Millers, where the engines were all machine and gorgeous, some of these Indy cars and such. But a lot of the race cars at the time were really just super stripped down street cars, maybe shortened chassis, lowered basic drivetrain. Maybe it was a single seat or two. And the first pre-war car I had was an Auburn Special. It was a late 20s Auburn chassis and engine that had been bodied as effectively a two-seat race car or Indy car with cycle fenders in Argentina. And then there was a time later, I had a pre-war car that was Chevrolet six-cylinder, straight six powered. It was neat. Made that a lot nicer, worked on it. Those were the experiences I had. So my wife and I are thinking we live in a nice little town, Perrysburg, Ohio. I kind of call it the Norman Rockwell town because it's very pleasant. The chain stores are sort of outside of the highway, and it's a very pleasant, kind of classic little American town. And I still love pre-war cars. I love the time period, but the trouble is I'm kind of a snob when it comes to it. And the problem with that is all the cars I like are six figures. And I have a hard time justifying that because the other truth of the matter with pre-war cars are they're kind of static in value or going down just because of the generations that like it and how much they're into it. So they're just not as active as other things. However, my wife and I were at the cute little car show. I lovingly call it the Boomer Show every Friday night in downtown Perrysburg. You get lots of muscle cars, a couple of pre-war cars, some exotics now and then, but it's a free car show. Hundreds of cars come every Friday night. And I was thinking, we got a cute little kiddo. And I want to make those nice family memories I remember when I was a kid. Maybe a Model A would be a good choice. Not my normal thing because, it's a little four-cylinder car. They're not real fast, but I rode around when I was a little kid. And they're readily affordable. You might be able to pick up a Model A for $10,000. And honestly, if you had $20,000 to $30,000, you could buy a really, really nice one. So I was on the internet looking up Facebook Marketplace, which is where I always get in trouble. That's the gateway drug, is Facebook Marketplace. And the problem is when you leave your gateway drug of Facebook Marketplace and go into the Wild West that is the internet search engine, the algorithms will find you. And the algorithm that found me that day was for a 1931 Buick Phaeton, which I never really thought about Buick. That wasn't really one of those marks you're like, whoa, Buick, But I saw this car, I'm like, wow, that is a big, beautiful Phaeton. Now, a Phaeton, I'm saying that a lot because it sounds cool. Basically means it's a long wheelbase. It's not a roadster where it's just two-seat. It's like multiple seats. It could be a 5-seat or it could be a 7-passenger. It's like stretched the whole way. And it has a rag top that comes up in the back and goes all the way to the front. And as silly as it sounds, it kind of looks like the hat I'm wearing right now. It sort of looks like a British flat cap, as weird as that is. I'm starting to feel like an old man right now. But anyway, the Phaeton, I just thought they looked grand and beautiful for that time period of American design. And from about 1930 to 1932, that was like a perfect time because that's when the car design reflected the old world and craftsmanship of kind of the back when, but they got big and powerful and opulent. And that was right before things started to smooth out, before World War II, and they became more like unibody and fully bodied and all. So that was like an antithesis time, just like an apex time of American design. But anyway, this Buick pops up and it's gorgeous. Tan top, tan leather seats. This leather looks beautiful. It's this beautiful, rich red with like darker red trim, big white wall tires with the cream wheels. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the exact color combination. This is gorgeous. How much is this thing? It was $35,000. Now, let's be honest, especially for an old, silly car that nobody needs. That's a lot of money, but it's not because the Buick has got a big straight 8 engine. First year for overhead valves. I know that doesn't sound exciting, but even Auburn and Cord and Packard were flathead engines back then. This had overhead valves from 1931, 3-speed, big wheelbase Phaeton. Any other car make, if you want a car like that, 8-cylinder Phaeton from that time period, it's going to be minimum. If you could even find one after waiting 5 years to see it, $80,000 plus. You want a Packard, whatever, 6 figures, forget about it. This thing's 35 grand. What? I'm like, okay. So I called the place, nice. And a gentleman had come in, and apparently he had signed the papers that he was going to buy it, but he never left a deposit, and he didn't pay for it. And I was calling the guy. It was a very nice place to represent. I was out in, I think, Arizona, and I wanted the car. I'm like, this is it. And the thing about pre-war cars is, if you find something that's the model and the price and the color combination you want, don't expect to find another one ever. Ever. It's not going to happen. Just forget about it. You need to be in the position to play the long game, but when you see something, do it. And so this guy was having it, and I was trying to use my charm and will to get this guy to sell it to me, and not this guy who didn't put a deposit on it, but I'm being, kind. And he said, well, give me a few days to see if this guy pays for it. I'm like, come on. Like a day goes by, and I'm like, I got to get this car. I'm never going to get a pre-war car for this good deal. That's this good again. And I called him back, and I was nice. And in a way, I started to put my cards on the table. I'm like, look, I want to buy this car from you. The gentleman you have, I totally understand where you're at, but this guy didn't put a deposit on it or pay anything. I will right now. I'm ready to purchase this car for you. So he was nice, but understood it. And I really appreciated this gentleman because he was honest, and he called the guy, and the guy was just him and hawing around and wasn't getting a deposit or paying for it. And that negated the deal because the paperwork he signed was based upon him giving a deposit, which he didn't. So the gentleman sold it to me, and I made good with what I said and everything. And it was a delight to work with him. And the car came. And admittingly, as it was on its way, and even the night before, I'm thinking, oh, what is wrong with me? Why am I doing this? Why am I buying some damned old car that I don't need, that nobody my age appreciates at all, that I'm not going to drive anywhere that much? But it's always about the dream. And the dream for me was, this is a way to have lovely family memories. And for my daughter, hopefully, to have an appreciation for things beyond her years and history in a way of making it fun. We can go to the park, we can go fishing in it, we can go to a farmer's market, we do all those things. It's very charming, everybody likes it. The car was restored in the late 80s, early 90s. It was a little older restoration. In the 90s, it was bought by a gentleman for his father, who had it through the early 2000s, who sadly had passed away. And the car had sat for a good number of years. And before I got it, the gentleman had it reconditioned in terms of mechanical and sort of brought up and cleaned up and made right. But he, if I'm not mistaken, was an attorney in Beverly Hills and had nowhere to put it. So that's why it was being sold. And it was very nice. I got in contact with him, sent me some manuals and books on it. So we've got the car, and it's big and grand and silly and old. It's weirdly perfect because I would say any pre-war car has a life and a charm to it that can't be matched by anything else. It's sort of the industrialized modern world version of this is going to sound hokey, but like the guy on the white horse riding down the street. No one's going to show up in America riding a horse and be like, what kind of freak are you? But a pre-war car, it transcends flexing. It transcends pomp and circumstance. And there's just something about it that everybody loves seeing. And I haven't totally put my finger on why it is, but maybe it's that it reminds us of where we came from another time. But the fact that it's working and still being used and enjoyed by people is just joyful. And I found that with my wife when we would start driving around our town. People love to see it. You have the top up, the top down. And it just, regardless of the generation, kids to old, it just makes people joyful. But with a little one, think, okay, so this is an old car, obviously. We have very safe town, very little traffic. Can we go down there? So with the little one in the car seat, I thought about it. I'm like, she's safer in the front or the back and strapping it in. So we decided the safest place was the back and strapping it down in the back with mom. And we're driving 25 miles an hour to the car show. But the new family love and tradition I found, which is just so wonderful, is my wife and I will decide to go out on Friday night to the free Boomer Car Show with the muscle cars and all. It's living your own American history, where you come from, and appreciating it. But it allows you to journey past your years and do it as a family. It's when you have a little one in a family, it's not that it changes your life or in some way burdens your life. It opens up your life to new adventures that you wouldn't have otherwise. And it's just so enjoyable to do that. So we'll drive to a little car show in Perrysburg, Ohio on Friday nights. People enjoy seeing it, the big car of the pre-war, and I think older people enjoy seeing young people loving that and keeping the history and culture alive. And so we'll park it, talk to people, walk around, see the cars, and then my wife and the little one, the stroller, will pop out and walk downtown and get dinner, and then we'll be out too late, and then it'll be the last car parked under a tree in the field at night. But it makes for wonderful family memories. Yeah, there's a few times where I think, oh, why did I spend my money on this silly old car? Because it's not going to be something I'm going to flip. I'm not going to race it. It's not going to do any of those things. And I'm only ever going to drive it around the little town. But it just means so much more. And it's such an exciting journey beyond that. Now, truth be told, logistically, here's what it's actually like to drive a pre-war car. I don't fit in it that well because I'm a bit taller than I'm guessing most people were in the early 30s. So the steering wheel is kind of like this. And so the shifter's really big and long. So first gear is kind of like this. So if I have to put my foot up to the brake and do that, that's tricky. Also, there's no starter button or with the key. The key has you turn the key to the left, not the right. And then there's a switch that you switch up, and that gives you that. You've got the choke here. You've got the spark to advance or retard here. And there's no button for the starter. There's a pedal. There's a fourth pedal above the throttle that you push like this, which engages the pinion to the starter flywheel. And then the last thing it does after that is push the electrical contact. So you start it here. But I'll be darned if it isn't weirdly the most reliable car I've ever bought right away. I almost feel not like manly as a mechanic to admit the only thing I've done with this car so far is put gas in it and mist it and spray it with quick detailer once. It's worked like a charm ever since. I've got it on a battery tender. Fingers crossed. It'll be a long, fun life of family memories.
Right now, I need you to check out Auto Tempest at the link in the description below to find whatever car you're searching for. They make car trek possible, and they've been a supporter of VINwiki for the last 4 years. So please check them out now to find your next car and support them for supporting us.